Let's see. Part four. Um, I need to tell you what happened after um, after I discovered that the dark man was actually sent by administration at Emory. That they were really behind the whole thing. There's a lot of details that I didn't have a chance to fill in part three. But I need to say in part four here, so that you get the full picture of what's gone on here, what has transpired over the past 7 months. There's a lot of stuff to fill in. I guess I'll begin by telling you that I filed not only grievances directly with patient relations, who is supposed to be Emory's internal advocacy department. But like I said, I mentioned earlier in one of my earlier videos, I have an advocacy background myself. I was an advocate for a lot of years. I had extensive training in it. I know how to do a complaint, how to gather information, and how to really represent the patient, and how to do it in a patient-centered way, um, while still obtaining the truth. And I can only tell you that the Department of Patient Relations at Emory, there are two of them. There's one for the hospital, for incidents that happen in the hospital, and then there's one for the Emory clinics. And I've dealt with both of them. Both of these departments are nothing but an arm of administration. They do not act in the best interest of patients. Um, they actually um, do their investigations in a very biased manner. And they don't seem to know the proper way to respond to a patient who has been traumatized in this manner. After what happened to me, I was understandably, once I really understood the magnitude of what they were doing, and the fact that it wasn't just these few people, but that it was institutional bullying and abuse, and that the people who were pulling the strings were at the top. When I realized that, um, it was very scary to me. And I won't lie, it terrified me. But I know in my heart that I have to do the right thing. I have to not let that stop me from fighting this type of discrimination, and which is exactly what it is. It's discrimination based on disability. They assumed that I was mentally ill, and I guess at some point, I'm pretty sure that administration, because I found out later from a letter they wrote me that they had been reading my blog. I'm pretty sure that they, had a number of medical professionals looking at my blog as well as the executives that were involved in administration, in, doing all the technical stuff that they had to do. I'm pretty sure that at some point they figured it out that I have Asperger's. And instead of going, oh shit, this is not right. This woman was misinterpreted. She does not have a mental illness. We really fucked up. And we we looked at this the wrong way. And we need to do right by her now, and correct this, and negotiate with her, try to do some kind of conflict resolution, which is what I wanted in the first place. I didn't set out initially to attack them, or, really stick it to them or anything like that. All I wanted was to pursue my medical care in peace. That's all I wanted from the very beginning. And they absolutely refused to take responsibility, and at every I gave them chance after chance after chance to make it right, and they just wouldn't do it. They wouldn't admit that they messed up and that they did things the wrong way. They didn't handle things well. And in some cases, you know, they were out and out malicious. But at any point, they could have decided to make a different decision and to handle things in a mature and respectful manner and do what health professionals are supposed to do, which is to act in the best interest of the patient. I mean, granted, they're a corporation, but they are licensed as a nonprofit, and nonprofits are not supposed to be able to just turn people away who are otherwise eligible. And so basically, what they did is they discriminated against my Asperger's and basically misinterpreted or misrepresented it as a mental illness. And therefore, they used that as an excuse to deny me care. And what happened over the period of the next 7 months was a long process of destruction of my doctor patient relationships at Emory. Um, my primary care physician, number one, um, whom I trusted and I felt very warmly towards for 13 years. And that's a heavy thing. When you feel that you have somebody that you can confide in for 13 years and they basically stab you in the back and you don't even realize it. It's like you don't want to believe that, but then when you see things to the contrary, you see signs that they're just not ringing true, and then you check things out and you find out absolutely that yes, they threw you under the bus and they were not acting in your best interest. It's extremely painful. It's excruciatingly painful. This was a man that I felt that I could trust, that I felt that no matter what, I could go to him and divulge things to him that I might not tell other people. I felt that if I went to him and told him what happened to me in the emergency room, that he would, of course, having an established relationship with me and knowing me for all these years and being that close with me that we could have these kind of conversations, I thought, of course, he would protect me. And I told him, I remember telling him on the patient portal a number of times, and then I asked him to call me because there were things that I felt were not appropriate to be divulged on the patient portal because I didn't know who all was involved in this. I didn't know which people at Emory were trustworthy and which ones were involved in this. But when I started to get an inkling that this went a lot deeper than just these rogue, unprofessional staff at the emergency room, but it went further than that, and that it had actually been engineered by administration in order to discredit me so that I couldn't come back. I guess they may have figured that they were liable, and so therefore they would just, kind of preemptively attack me and discredit me so that I couldn't sue them or something. I don't know. I guess that's what their motivation was. But nonetheless, I really thought up until toward almost the very end that my primary care physician would not participate in something like this. and that he would not act against me, and that he would protect me when I told him what had happened, and that I was essentially victimized, that people took advantage of my weakened condition and my um, having shut down because of my Asperger's, um, and my, kind of trusting nature, that they took advantage of me. I thought that he would protect me, and when I went to him and I had a talk with him on the phone and I told him everything, um, what I found was something very different than what I expected. I had no idea. But instead of giving the response that most people would if they had heard something like this, he was not empathetic at all. In fact, quite the opposite. I mean, he seemed irritated. He was sighing on the phone. He seemed to be changing positions. He was, it seemed almost like he was rolling his eyes, even though it was on the phone. It was just his demeanor was very, very unempathetic. And um, instead of saying, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. This shouldn't have happened to you. You didn't deserve this." That's what you're supposed to say to somebody who's been abused, who has been traumatized in this kind of an incident. And he didn't say that. It was almost like it was all he could do to sit through the discussion when I was telling him what happened to me. And I said to him, "I need you to protect me," because I said, "I don't know why it was that I was that vulnerable, that I said I tried to protect myself. I tried to defend myself any way I knew how, but I couldn't fully do it." And I said that, these doctors, there's an imbalance of power. They're a doctor, I'm a patient, you know, and so no matter how educated or how intelligent or how proactive or assertive or whatever I am, there's still an imbalance of power any way you slice it. And I said to him, "You're a doctor." I said, "You've known me for a long time and you know that I'm an honest person. You know that I don't just come to you for no reason. And there have been times when I was sick and I didn't come in. So I'm not like some kind of a drama queen or something that just, exaggerates my symptoms or something like that and comes in for a broken toenail or something. I have been sucking it up for 10 years since I've been off that protocol that I was on for my sarcoidosis and could no longer obtain it. I have been dealing with it at home alone. And I told him, I said, for the past 10 years, I've hardly asked you for anything but to renew my maintenance medications. You know that, I don't make stuff up or anything like that, and that I'm a credible person. So I said, I really, right now, I'm in a vulnerable state. I need you to protect me as my doctor. And I need you to take some steps. Um, you know, Report the incident. I know that Emory has the capability where staff can report things anonymously. Um, if you need to uh, basically tell him to stay away from me or whatever you have to do, I really need you to do this as my doctor, because right now, I'm really worried because I'm aware enough now to know that there are certain blind spots that I have where I trust people when I shouldn't. And now that I know this, I need you to do some things on my behalf, things that I can't do to help, keep me safe. And I said, one of the things I need you to do is to set up somebody. I realize that you don't have admitting privileges to the hospital, but knowing that I have this dysautonomic problem and whatever movement disorder thing that I have, whatever the diagnosis is, um, you know, knowing that I'm in this state and I'm in a wheelchair now and I'm bedbound now, I really need you to step up right now as my doctor and, find somebody in the event of hospitalization that if I should need to go into the hospital again, I need you to find somebody who can do that directly rather than my having to go through the ER because I don't ever want to have an experience like that again. And I just don't trust going to the ER anymore. And I think with good reason. I don't think it's an irrational fear. It's with real basis. And so I said, that's one thing you can do. I said, the other thing you can do is any way that you can communicate with me rather than doing it on the patient portal. Anytime that you need to order something, if there's any way that you can do that outside the electronic record system, because I said I've asked for the people involved to be barred from access to my electronic record. And I went through the proper procedure to do that, and they denied it. And I asked them to amend the record. They denied that. I asked them to remove the libelous material from my record, and they refused. And so at every turn, administration has refused to protect me. So I said, you as my doctor, I need you to do everything you can think of to protect me. We need to make a plan for my safety right now. Because now that I am more aware, um, and I didn't tell him about my Asperger's because there again, I still, in the back of my mind, I thought, the fact that he's reacting to me in this way, that he's acting like it's no big deal and he's not reacting the way somebody should when they're told about these kinds of things. It makes me think that uh, maybe I can't trust him with that information. Maybe he would use it against me. Maybe it wouldn't be in my best interest to tell him right now. Maybe I should just go get an evaluation first and get it officially confirmed and then tell him. And that was what my original plan was, because I didn't want to do anything, that would make my situation worse. Um, I wanted to do things in such a way so that I could be safe. That was the whole point of my talking to him. And so what I did is I just spoke with him and I told him what I needed, without explaining fully why and what was going on, why I was so vulnerable, and why um, I trusted people that I probably shouldn't have trusted, and why I didn't recognize that until after the fact. Um, I couldn't, I didn't feel like I could tell him that at that time, but I wanted to. I really did. I mean, I felt as though I should be able to tell him that and have him accept me for who I am without having to fear that he would use it against me or that he would treat me like I'm incompetent or that he would use it as more reason not to believe me. Um, but the whole thing is that I really I really felt that the way he was responding to me was giving me strong messages that, for one reason or another, I couldn't go to him with that. And as much as I wanted to just open up and tell him everything, I couldn't because he wasn't taking me seriously. And that was so hurtful. That was incredibly hurtful, the way that he was responding to me in such a flippant and dismissive way. And and when I fully realized that he was just tolerating the conversation and he couldn't wait to get off the phone and that he wasn't even thinking about doing things to protect me, and that he didn't even want to. I thought, how is this somebody who cares about me? How could this be? Because somebody who cares about you doesn't respond that way. They come to you with open arms. Somebody who truly cares about you. And I had to do some reality testing with myself. And I had to get real with the fact that my primary care doctor that I had known for 13 years and trusted and really felt warmly toward, that he didn't believe me. He didn't really care genuinely about my best interests and about keeping me safe. And he viewed me as a joke. That was the truth. And when I realized that, it was so incredibly painful. It was just absolutely gut-wrenching. It was horrible because I didn't want to think that about him. I didn't want to believe that. I didn't want him to I didn't want him to look at me like I was some sort of a freak or a joke or somebody that was an uncredible person. But he did. And all of this was this unfolding of a course of events that just one thing led to another. And I started to find out truths that I wish hadn't existed, but they did. And that was just the beginning of the destruction of all of my doctor-patient relationships at Emory. And then my pulmonologist, who my primary care doctor had referred me to in the first place, who did 3 sleep studies on me and found that they were grossly abnormal. It wasn't long after I had pushed and pushed and pushed to try to get something moving with my primary care doctor, and orders were backed up. I noticed my care slowed to a crawl and he wasn't writing the orders. Then I thought that I could still trust and depend on my pulmonologist, who I also had a very close relationship with for a while. And I thought that maybe if I could just transfer all the order writing over to him, that maybe I wouldn't have to, you know, I wouldn't have to ask my primary care doctor to do these things. Maybe that he would do it instead, and that my care could still be managed that way. And for a minute, I thought maybe that will turn out better. But um, it ended up that I found out that there were a bunch of referrals that my primary care doctor was supposed to have written, and also for the medication, an appeal for the medication through the Marshall Protocol, Benicar, that I was trying to obtain and trying to get Medicare to agree to cover off label. When I went back and checked those things out, and I discovered that he had never filed an appeal with Maximus. Maximus was the third party um, company that, I guess in the third stage appeal, when you appeal something like that to get a medication covered through Medicare Part D, Maximus is the third stage appeal process. And the only At first, I didn't want to believe that either. And I called them and I talked to a woman numerous times. And I said to her, would you please check your system again? My doctor told me that he had gone through this and he had filed an appeal on my behalf. And maybe it's just misplaced or something. They checked several times and they said, no, the only appeal that we have is the original one from you. We don't have anything in our entire system from your doctor. And then when I found out that there were pages missing from the ALS clinic referral, and that in fact it just had not been filled out, that it was just a cover page saying refer to Dr. X, the doctor who was in charge of that clinic over there, and that there's no way in hell that a referral so sparse would have been accepted. And of course, I didn't get accepted because of that. But he never explained any of this to me. He never asked me, and I begged him on the patient portal, what do we need? What evidence do you have to have? Or, what can I do to help to facilitate this? Let me know what's missing and what he needs. And it was just like pulling teeth. And then, I had to finally call his supervisor in order to, basically get him to start acting on referrals that had been backed up for weeks and some of them for months. I was supposed to get a better wheelchair through Medicare. I had had a wheelchair evaluation through Shepherd Center, and they were trying to get me a better wheelchair that would accommodate for my dysautonomia, for if I needed to tip backwards in case I started having a near fainting spell, and also a headrest because my neck gets extremely fatigued and it starts getting in severe pain when I go to the doctor, and the time that it takes to wait, and then to wait to be picked up by transportation and go home and all of that, stuff. And finally, to have those things go through, and then he was supposed to do another follow-up MRI on my TMJ because my TMJ had been worse and my jaw has been dislocating at times from side to side and cracking and making sounds that it wasn't making before, which kind of indicated that it had progressed further. And I was having more pain in that area around the jaw. And it took for me to call his supervisor, and I really didn't want to do that because I liked this guy. I really cared about him, and I thought that he was a good guy, and that he really cared about me and wanted the best for me, and that, we had a good connection as a doctor and a patient. But I had to resort to that in order to get things moving in my care because everything was stalled. And finally, I think he submitted the um, um, the order to radiology on at least 3, maybe 4 occasions without specifying whether it was with or without contrast. And he would just turn it in like that. This man has worked for Emory at least as long as I've known him, at least 13 years. I don't know how long before I came to know him that he worked at Emory and that he was employed there, but at least 13 years. So this is not a dumb man. I mean, this guy is not a newbie. He's not, he's not unfamiliar with the procedure. And it just became very clear that he was really sitting on my care out of passive aggressiveness, and that everything that I asked him to do, he was just dragging his feet and dragging his feet and dragging his feet simply because I asked. But the thing is that I had no choice because he was not taking initiative. as my primary care doctor, when I had come to him with all of this, it was really incumbent upon him to be proactive and start working for me and trying to help, you know, get me the help that I needed. And if he didn't know what to do, there were all sorts of ways that he could ask other doctors, that he could refer me to different specialists. I even went and I dug up information on who the top specialists were in the field for dysautonomia and for some of these things, movement disorders and more rare types of neurological syndromes and everything that may have been involved in my symptoms. And I actually did a lot of that research myself, and I did all the legwork and I handed it to him on a silver platter on the patient portal. I put it in writing so he wouldn't forget. I organized things for him. I went way beyond what a patient should have to do. There were things that were his responsibility that I took on just so that he wouldn't feel like it was too much work. I was trying to be respectful in that way and trying not to overload him with this stuff because I knew that it was a lot, a lot to do and a lot to track down, and that my case is complex and it's not easy and it's going to take time. And, it takes a lot of work. I realized that. I acknowledge that. And that's why I was doing as much research as I was on my own, because I was trying to help with my own treatment. I was trying to help with my own investigation because I didn't want him to give up on me. I didn't want him to feel that I was more trouble than I was worth. I didn't want him to feel that it was just too much for him to handle and that he just wanted to dump it in somebody else's lap. So I helped. I did everything in my power to help myself. And instead of viewing that as an asset, he viewed it as if I was just some sort of hypochondriac, and that's how he started treating me. And um, when I saw the neurologist in general neurology, um, after that incident happened in the emergency room, I mean, it was all I could do to bring myself to go to that appointment. And I just told myself, well, you don't have to let her touch you. Just go in and talk to her and tell her not to do anything, that you just want to have a conversation right now and save any exam for later until I get to know her. I even told myself that so that I could manage to bring myself to go in there. And she, at first, it really freaked me out because when I did go in and see her, she actually kind of didn't respect the fact that I didn't want her to do anything physically right then, because I told her I didn't go into detail about the incident in the emergency room where I was physically abused. I didn't go into that, but I just said to her, I had a bad experience with a neurologist, and could we not do this right now? When she started taking out her tools, and I was like, oh no, I got really scared because of what I had been through. And she didn't initially. I think maybe because I didn't know, but she was 9 months pregnant and she was going to be going on maternity leave at any time. And she probably figured that she would just go ahead and get it over with because she was going to be gone for 3 months. But initially, she didn't really respect my wishes when I asked her to not do that right now until I got to know her, and she kind of forced it on me, and I was really scared. And I'm sure that my spasticity was even worse because of being scared on top of what was physically wrong with me. And then there again, that sort of added to the whole misconception where, I'm sure because the first thing she said to me when she walked into the office was, "I've read your records." And I thought, oh shit, what records did she read? Oh God. And I knew, I mean, I was pretty sure because on the patient portal, even, that emergency room report was pretty visible up on the first page. And, it was one of maybe the fifth one down of the entries that was on there. So I figured that I'm sure she had read it. And what those people, him and the mid level hospitalist, had written about me, the absolutely, stigmatizing, psych shaming type of language, the coded language that they had used, that of course would really make any new doctor think twice before wanting to work with me. And so I just thought, oh God, And so after she said that she had read my records and all that, and she said, "I guess you're here because you don't have a diagnosis yet and you want to find out what's wrong with you." And I was like, "Yes." And she said, "Well, it could be your sarcoidosis. It's very possible that, dysautonomia and some of these other symptoms could be caused by your sarcoidosis. It could have progressed, or it could be, in a flare or something like that." And she said, "If it's your sarcoidosis, then I think you really need to think about going on immunosuppressants." And at that point, I just shut down. I just was like, I couldn't talk. I became just like immobile. And I found it very hard to look at her or respond or anything. And that happens to me when I'm under pressure and I feel pressured by somebody. I feel like overpowered by them. I can't talk. I can't. I literally get frozen and I can't help it. That's happened to me, many many times, and I know that sometimes I can go completely nonverbal, and I don't have any control over it. It just has to come back when it comes back on its own, and like usually when the pressure stops. And I tried to respond to her, and she was like, "Yes, yes," like that. I couldn't say anything. I was like trying really hard, struggling to get the words out. And finally was like, uh I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to agree with her because I didn't. I knew that immunosuppressants weren't going to be good for me because they actually open you up to infection. And, sarcoidosis, now there's a large amount of evidence showing that it's caused by intracellular pathogens, bacteria, virus, sometimes other types of pathogens. Um, and I didn't want that for myself. And she had told me, she said, "Well, the Marshall Protocol doesn't seem to be working." And I said, "Well, yeah, it's not right now. It was really excellent when I tried it the first time and it really saved my life, but I think there's something else wrong other than my sarcoidosis. But I guess, yeah, it's worth a try to find out if that's what's causing this." But my guess is that it's something other than my sarcoidosis, because otherwise the Marshall Protocol would be working. And but I said, I can't bring myself to go on immunosuppressants. I know what those drugs do, and sometimes they can cause organ damage and, add insult to injury and add to your problems that you have already, add to the, to the disease itself. And so initially, I mean, when she, did her thing with the, her exam, I was just really terrified. And, she kind of, I know she was sort of trying to rush through it because, and she said, "I'm just going to do it on my hand." But that didn't make me feel any more safe. Just the fact that she was pushing the issue and she didn't respect my asking her to not do that. Um, I was still scared, and I just couldn't control that. And um, she just continued, but she tried. I could tell she tried to hurry it up to get it over with, and I am glad that she did that. Rather than to drag it out and everything. If she was going to do it, I was like, okay, just get it over with. And that's what I thought in my internally in my head. And so after that, um, what she wrote was not very good. And I just obtained copies of my medical records today, and I got the doctor's notes. I haven't read the whole thing, but I was very upset. I've been very upset today because I found that there were a lot more people that were contributing to this theory of theirs than the people that I suspected. And this neurologist, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about her after reading what I read because I don't know what to say, but initially I think that she believed what this man, the dark man, believed about me on some level, or she at least was considering it as a possibility. One or the other of his theories, or both. I don't know. But when I read the notes today, I realized that her first impression of me was different than her impression of me later. And I do appreciate that. And I hope that I'm reading this right, that she, over time, when she learned more of my situation and my circumstances, and when I told her what I told her on the 3rd of um, what was it? The 3rd of June, I guess, when I saw her, when she came back from maternity leave. Um, I just hope that I'm reading this correctly, that she now is 100% behind me and knows that the way I'm telling it is the way it is. Because I even told her about the Asperger's, and I said to her, even if you could help me find somebody in Atlanta who works with women, who understands how this presents in women, where I can get an official assessment. I mean, I know enough now to know that's that's what's going on. I mean, aside from my other neurological stuff that she's looking at. But I had said to her, and on this last appointment, I told her what was going on, and I said, this is what was misinterpreted or misconstrued. I'm not sure how much of it was intentional and how much was just that they misunderstood uh, the way I came across. But I told her flat out, I said, this is not psych. This is a neurodevelopmental disorder. And, I don't know how much she knows about it, and about how it presents differently in women than men and all that. But I wanted her to know that this is what was being misinterpreted. That, I'm not mentally ill. I don't have hysterical conversion disorder. I don't have somatization disorder or anything like that. I'm not faking it or feigning it or however they want to put it. That, you know, I don't have it in me to do that stuff. I really, really don't. I don't agree with it. I don't approve of it. And I would never do that. And I wanted to just have a straight talk with her, one on one, and let her know exactly everything that I knew about what was going on with my situation, medically and neurologically and neurodevelopmentally and everything. And so I thought, well, And then what was interesting is that when I saw her in the office after she got back from maternity leave, her nurse practitioner had been sharing my ongoing symptom updates with her when she was on maternity leave. And it seemed to me like I saw a whole different side to her when I saw her in the office the second time. The first time she came across as pushy and distancing, and I didn't feel comfortable with her at first. But when I saw her on June 3rd, when she came back from maternity leave, she seemed very different. She seemed very warm. She seemed accepting of what I told her. She seemed genuinely like she got it. And that's the kind of doctor that I need. I need a doctor that will take what I'm saying at face value and accept me for who I am, not think badly of me for it, not try to think what's behind it or under it or, something other than what I'm telling her, because I am completely 100% honest. And I need for people to understand that. Um, that's me. That is who I am on the deepest level. And um, I knew that she was my only hope at Emory because, you know, my GP ultimately terminated me officially when I basically said to him, I've been doing 95% of the work, and what is going on? And why are you treating me this way? And, I need it to stop. This is not respectful. I wasn't mean to him. I just had it up to here, and I had said over and over and over again what I needed, and he was not respecting that. And you know, so it ended up being a situation where I lost him officially. And then my pulmonologist started acting strange, and he wanted me to go see a psychiatrist, and he bought into the whole BS that because what happened, I didn't know this, but on the first appointment, the neurologist, the female neurologist in Emory General Neurology, had put some things in there that really were not favorable and fed into the whole bullshit that was being perpetuated about me by the dark man and by anybody else who was associated with him, by administration, who it was basically their agenda to try to discredit me. And I don't think that she was involved in that intentionally, but I think because of the way neurologists are taught. I mean, think about this. Neurology was originally developed by males. And back in the day when hysterical conversion disorder was coined, that was back in the day of Sigmund Freud. And that was a very sexist time. That was a time when people had this whole view of women as being dramatic and overly emotional and all this stuff. And so then women were kind of thought to be, you know, hysterical when they came in with this or that symptom medically. And, neurology is based in a very male dominated framework. The people that first came up with those, you know, um, philosophies were male neurologists. They were not female neurologists. They were male neurologists back at a time where there were no female neurologists. And so now there are females that are going into that field, and they still are taught the same old-fashioned way that the male neurologists are taught. And this was a belief system that was perpetuated and developed by male neurologists, and especially older conservative male neurologists. And you have to look at it in terms of that, it may not even be the person's natural mindset, but when they're taught this in medical school and when they go into their specialty, this is the kind of bullshit that they're taught to believe about patients. They're taught to believe that when they get certain signs, when they do neurological exams, if it's inconsistent, then the person must be either making it up or it must be some psychological phenomenon rather than physical. And that needs to be thrown out the window because there are other explanations why things come out that way. One of them being that you have ADD and Asperger's. I mean, that, you know, rather than jumping to the conclusion that something is in somebody's head simply because, you don't have the answer yet and because you get an inconsistent on a neuro exam, that can be very damaging to a patient and it doesn't take all variables into account. So, one of my missions now is to see that the field of neurology becomes less sexist. I guess that's the best word for it, is it really is. It's based on sexist ideas. And I think it needs to become more female friendly. And so this neurologist initially, she just kind of passed on like a game of telephone what the dark man had said about me. And it ended up not being not looking too good for me. And but then between that appointment and our next appointment, after she had been forwarded some of my messages about what had been going on with me with my medical symptoms from the nurse practitioner, um, I think that she began to see also because, I had more, you know, um, hard evidence of my dysautonomia that I had provided from Piedmont and also blood pooling in my feet. She knew that there was evidence of what I was saying, that this was not in my head, that it was real. And so in our second appointment, it was just completely different. And I really bonded with her, and I felt like she really got it this time. And I saw a whole different side to her. And I think she really got me when I told her what was really going on with everything, including the Asperger's, and the fact that that was what people were misinterpreting, and the fact that I had been traumatized. Um, and I said to her that in no way should take away from the underlying condition. And, it's nothing, don't get the two mixed up because, yeah, I have Asperger's and I have trauma from what happened to me in the emergency room, the way I've been treated and the way administration has been treating me, the way I have been harassed through this process of diagnosis when I've been legitimately trying to find out what's wrong. Um, I said, but I want to put this to bed. I don't want people to continue to misinterpret me, and I want this to never happen again. And so she agreed to help me. And then what happened was that administration, um, their chief medical officer sent me a certified letter saying that I was being severed from their care entirely, not just one clinic, but the entire Emory system, that they were terminating all doctor patient relationships between me and my doctors and within the Emory system, and that, you know, all of my future appointments were going to be canceled. And I went in to see another neurologist that I see for my myoclonus the other day. I had a personal assistant with me, so I have a witness to this. She came in with me, and I was turned away. I had already set up trips to Cleveland Clinic and to the University of Florida Movement Disorders Clinic, and one was for the 7th, and the other was for the 13th. And I was supposed to be checking into the hotel on the 6th, the night before. I had a nonprofit organization that I was filing some paperwork with so that they could cover my travel expenses. And um, I was supposed to have one neurologist sign my oxygen concentrator papers so I could take that on the plane with me. And my main neurologist was supposed to be working on the nonprofit application. And so administration came in knowing, I mean, they were reading everything on the patient portal I was writing to my doctors, knowing that I was slated to go for these out of town evaluations. They sabotaged them before I had a chance to get these things signed by these doctors. And they came in and they told my main neurologist, as well as the neurologist in sleep medicine who was seeing me, that they were forbidden to see me any longer, that they were ordering them to stop seeing me, to terminate me as a patient. To me, that tells me that everything that I've said is absolutely accurate, that it was their intention to prevent me from proving my medical condition, that it was their intention to destroy my doctor patient relationships. They first attempted to turn my doctors against me, and then when my main neurologist decided that her first impression of me was incorrect, and that I in fact do have a legitimate neurological condition and it is not psychogenic, and that she was going to help me prove this, then administration couldn't have that. Oh, no, no, no. We want our doctors to prove our hypothesis. And no, no. We can't have a doctor being on the patient's side. Oh, absolutely not. We can't tolerate that. So what they did is they made sure that before she had a chance to do anything on my behalf, she was cut off from seeing me and prohibited from treating me. And so therefore it stopped the entire process, and now I'm not able to go on my trip. And I'm having to reschedule, which could take up to a year for me to get these independent evaluations rescheduled. So all I can say is that that is highly corrupt, and it's in no way um, in my best interest as a patient. And how a healthcare corporation can do something like that and claim to be philanthropic and claim to be a nonprofit at that and sabotage a patient directly like that is absolutely, you know, flabbergasting. I just don't even know the word for it. But again, I encourage you to speak out on this topic and to fight against this kind of discrimination, because it's really important. There are a lot of us going through this right now in one form or another, and I honestly want to see it end. And I think we need to organize around this issue, um, because it's not okay. It's absolutely not okay. Um, I just don't know what more to say. But, I'm going to keep fighting. And I want to see this type of experience be a thing of the past so that no other patient has to suffer these kinds of injustices. Um, and I know that this is happening to autistic, Asperger's people all over the country and possibly even internationally. Um, this kind of prejudice needs to stop. It's not okay. And I saw another video of somebody in Canada who had a similar experience, and she was talking about the same thing. So, if you've had a similar experience, especially at Emory Healthcare in Georgia, and even if not, even if you've had one